Hi everyone, let's listen to some French podcast which will help you make your learning process much more easy and also interesting. The podcast that I'm going to mention is one of my favorites and I almost listen to it every other day. There are some podcasts which is useful for your DELF exams and there are some which you can listen for your own fun, entertainment and cultural information. All of this I'll be dividing into different parts so that you can understand which podcast will be much more useful for you. A little disclaimer that this podcast is meant for someone at an intermediate level or above A2 level, so B1, B2 and C1 level. Starting with some fun podcasts and interesting podcasts to listen in your free time or while you're walking. All of this podcast is available on Spotify around the world. The first podcast that I'm going to mention is I've recently discovered. It is called Our Way. Our Way is a podcast of two Français who are talking about their daily life and the usual topics around France and in the world. It's a fun way to listen. It's more of a friendly podcast which is good for everyday topics, and you'll actually feel like they are your friends who are talking and sharing their conversation. So do listen to it. I always listen to it while I'm walking or around the time when I'm doing something. This is a fun podcast to listen to. One of the girl of this podcast is named Sam, who handles the page Oh My French Class. You might have seen it if you're a French learner. This page is also engaging. It's an Instagram page, but it's her podcast with her friend, which is super interesting. The humor is excellent. So, yeah, I would suggest you to go and watch it or actually go and listen to it. Next one is Inno French. Inno French is the podcast to listen when you want things to get simplified. It not only covers daily topics but also more into French cultural topics. I feel that every French learner should actually once listen to his podcast because he makes every topic so simplified and easy to understand. He also has a transcription of his podcast on the website, so if you want you can also look through the transcription if the audio is a little difficult for you. But this is one of the best podcasts to listen to, get the information and get the topic more simplified. It's also the best way to practice your production oral because most of the topics that he cover you can either use in your expose or your monologue. Next one is French Instinct. This is done by a French woman who has the sweetest or the soothing voice you could ever hear. If you had a tiring day and if you want to listen to some good French stories or get back to the motivation of learning French, then this is the podcast for you because her voice is very soothing to hear, and also she describes every single thing in a very precisely manner, and it's more like you're listening to someone's story. So it's a great podcast to again listen to it. Has a lot of vocabulary inside it, so if you're looking to learn some vocabulary, this is the podcast you should go to. Speaking of vocabulary, the next podcast is Olalla French podcast. The host of this podcast is Manon, and here she covers cultural topics in French, and on top of that she also does a lot of grammar topics and explains it to you with giving some examples. So it's a good way to practice for your DELF exams and also to understand certain grammar and how to use it in your phrases. Fifth podcast that you must listen to is from In Power. This is suggested for the students who have B2 or C1 level, as it is very fast. The French that they speak here is super fast, but it is good to listen. Host of this podcast is Louise Aubry, much better known as My Better Self. If you have known her on Instagram, her page is excellent, even on YouTube is excellent. But this is the podcast is where she invites other entrepreneurs or influencers or the people of the social media space to share their opinion and motivation to move forward in the business world. It is a podcast made for a dose of inspiration for you, and it is suitable for someone who wants to improve your listening skills and get better at your listening, that is your comprehension oral in your DELF exam. The sixth one is Les Actus du Jour, done by Hugo Decrypt. Here he does the podcast for 10 minutes and describes the actuality. It is best for your monologue or your expose in your DELF, but also if you're someone who is interested in French language and you want to know about the actualities of what is happening in France, it's a great podcast to listen to. It's only for 10 minutes and you can get all the daily updates or the current happenings in France and also around the world related to France. Seventh and the last podcast that I would recommend to every French language learner who wants to appear for DELF exam or want to increase your level and master this language is to listen to this podcast, because it's like a radio which is called 8 Milliard the Waza on RFE. This podcast is amazing because you have a lot of invites, and here it's not just one accent but different French accents of different nation like Africa and Sud de France come together and they share their opinions on various topics from cultural, education to political and even environmental topics are shared here. So this is like a radio and it is also in some of your saison book and also comes in your DELF exams. So if you want to have good marks and score above 70-80, then you have to master this podcast, because the kind of audios that comes into DELF exams of B1 B2 level, it's this kind of audios. So listen to this and practice for your DELF. It will definitely help you and gain you much better marks and help your learning process much more easier. These were all the podcasts which are one of my favorite but also very useful and valuable for DELF exams. Many of such podcasts and resources we share in our DELF French preparatory course, which is our 10-hour course for all the students who wish to appear for DELF exam. So if you're done with the course and you still want a little boost of confidence and practice, and you want your essays to get corrected or want someone to speak with or practice your listening or writing, all of this is covered in this 10-hour course of DELF preparatory course that we have launched for everyone who intend to score good marks without any hesitation for a DELF exam. This course starts 1 month before every DELF exam. So right now when the exams are in March, the first batch starts on February. So if you are interested to join the course, the link is in the description. All the details are mentioned there. You can also reach out to us if you have any questions regard to it. So thanks for watching and hope this video helps, and if you have any more questions or doubts regarding DELF exams, then you can comment down below, or if you're already a language learner and cleared the exam, then you can suggest some other resources or some podcasts that you listen to. Let this be the place where we help each other in our French language learning journey. Thanks for watching and merci.